Sad the damage was there too. Look at you.
Was it?
They need
Yeah.
something, anything to feel whole.
Each of my melees was hitting for 210k.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's only getting better too.
Does that make you feel big?
And I missed Tractor, which hurts all our damage, but you know.
Like a hero, like a killer.
Yeah, I would have had more if I had like another round of heavy to go, but
God, this build's fucking crazy, dude. What? I can't wait
That
for
is being
next
tight,
patch
man.
when
just be a
everything else
fucking
is
tight
new.
man.
I know.
Just be a tight man. Your favorite class sucks, and I'm sorry.
All right, Titans, I am so sorry it took this long. Apparently, I just don't know how to read my own notes when I'm doing these in order. But today is finally Titan Day, Titan builds for Edge of Fate. In case you missed it, I'm going to talk about the artifact very quickly. I'm going to pull up the clip from the Warlock video. So we'll go ahead and watch that if you need to know what the artifact does. We are only doing the first three columns. 2 columns if you're not counting the weapon things, which I don't really consider impactful. So those are what's going to be relevant. We'll talk about those really quickly, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the builds. To start us off, we have the Flame, Fiber, and Freeze mod, which is going to give you a Solar Strand and Solar Stasis Siphon mod. Those will be additional options. Instead of having to pick 2 separate slots, you can put them together. That'll be a good pick as long as you are doing something with solar. And if you're going to have a darkness thing instead of kinetic, great pick. Scavenger mods being reduced to 1, great pick as well. If you are going to be playing Stasis, this Frost Armor one, no one cares about. Yes, you're going to get plus 20 reload speed. I don't think that's a game changer at all. I'd rather take the ammo scav being cheaper or the siphon mods. However, the woven mail one's pretty good. You're going to get extra grenade and extra class stat. Going into the expansion, we're not going to have the best stat spreads to start out with, but this can help you either plug the gaps or get you some extra energy, get some of that grenade damage or some of that class ability over shield early on. And later on, once you are making these builds, you can kind of account for this and have this be a little bit of a boost for you whenever you have woven mail. This will work on Prismatic and on regular strands, so nice piece to consider there. The rapid precision rifling thing with scout rifles is whatever. No one's really going to be using scout rifles in the Legend campaign. If you do, you can think about this. It's just reload speed though. But I highly recommend taking either tightly woven, the siphon mods, or the scavenger mods. In that middle slot here, we're going to say you're going to get maybe 1 or 2 of these. I think you can get up to 2 of these and then 3 of the 4th column. So if you're going to take 2 of these, Fever and Chill is the obvious standout pick here. We're getting headshots with solar weapons gives you Radiant, and headshots with Stasis weapon gives you a stack of Frost armor. The Radiant is much more upfront and powerful than the Frost armor, so I will recommend if you have to pick one or the other to focus on solar on this. On top of that, Elemental Benevolence is pretty good. We're giving elemental buffs to allies, gives class ability energy. If you're playing solo, you're not trying to buff people, don't worry about it. You do have Frost Renewal if you're playing Stasis. This will let your Stasis shield explode when your shields break. It will freeze combatants nearby and then give you, another thing of Frost Armor to replace that. I'm assuming this is going to have a cooldown, so it's not going to be totally reliable, but this will get you a bit more utility out of Frost Armor in general. And if you do have only 1 stack, that should still work with Fever and Chill in this combining to give you that AoE freeze with a cooldown. Reciprocation is a sidearm buff. If you're going to be playing with sidearms, you can run it, but I don't think it's going to be a game changer. Refreshing Threads, though, pretty useful on any class. You just need to match your super energy with the pickup that you're picking up, and you will get energy to your least charge ability. So if you're doing Strand, pick up Tangles, you'll get ability energy. Great flex pick, especially if you're going to be playing a not featured element. If you do go later, though, Threaded Blast is obviously good. Cauterized Darkness is going to be good. These other ones are kind of okay. And then Frigid Glare is going to be good, and Shield Crush and Radiant Shrapnel are the standout picks here. I don't think Elemental Overdrive is going to be crazy unless it's more than like 10%. If it's like 15%, this could be a pretty solid pick. But Shield Crush and Frigid Glare are going to be more consistent probably. But you can tailor it to whatever you're running. Like if you're running just Stasis, you could take both of those. You know what I mean? All right, Titans, you actually get 8 builds today because I actually think there's multiple Strand builds that you can use. So we're going to start off with Solar, which I think is going to be a mainstay. Solar right now is already very, very good. Going into the expansion with the melee changes and Roaring Flames getting some increased damage, and the additive things on top of it, it is still going to be stronger than it is right now for like Bonk Titan, using things like Syntheseps, using Worm Gods are all going to be stronger than Bonk is now, as well as 1-2 Punch actually working with your Solar Throwing Hammer. So Throwing Hammer Titan is going to feel a lot better. However, our first build I want to talk about is actually a Consecration build on Solar. Consecration is going to be getting a 3rd fragment slot on Solar. It's going to be losing that slot on Prismatic. So I just wanted to kind of do a bit of a Solar build. I have always been a fan of Consecration even on Solar. So this is a variation of just running HOIL to make sure you have good uptime. Going into the expansion, with our increased ability cooldown rates, HOIL should be even better going forward. But just in case, to just make sure you have it up as often as possible, we are still running Sol Invictus. That will give you sunspots, which will also boost your regen energy, giving you some restoration, doing some extra damage. So great thing to pair together here. If the ability uptime in the expansion is actually way, way better than I think it is, eventually I might switch out Sol Invictus for Roaring Flames, which will also stack the Consecration damage even higher, which should help make up for some of that loss of ignition damage. But for now, Sol Invictus is the safe pick. I have Hammer Strike on here just to not accidentally throw the Throwing Hammer off the map while trying to do a slide melee. It's a little bit easier to maintain like that. If you have trouble with Hammer Strike going off on accident and you just want to do Throwing Hammer, just take whichever of these you actually prefer to have as your backup option. And I put on Swarm Grenade here in order to scorch targets. The main reason being, with the extra fragment slot, I believe you will want to take Ember of Searing here, so that when you kill a scorched target, you get some melee energy back. Because doing the uppercut will scorch enemies, and then the slam will kill those enemies. That will count towards searing. So will these grenade hits that scorch enemies. So something like Swarm Grenade, which is fast cooldown, can hit multiple enemies pretty reliably. Great choice there. Sol Invictus will also scorch enemies that are nearby if they walk into the sunspot. So this will all just kind of feed back into getting you extra melee energy. Now Empyrean's here to extend the restoration from your sunspots, as well as Radiant from torches. Great thing to combo here. Obviously, if you are running Throwing Hammer, you have pretty much infinite uptime on torches, but this will just make sure your restoration's always up. Eruption's here to give you bigger AoE and Consecration. There are other things on here that will boost ignitions. Things like Charg doing some Scorch might help out if it doesn't kill something, or Blistering giving you extra grenade energy. But I don't think they're really relevant. I think Eruption is the main one that you need to have for this kind of ignition build. And I'd rather take Solace here to give you some extra leeway on your Restoration and Radiant to make sure you're able to maintain it 100% of the time. Now, as I said, HOIL will just help you cycle your abilities. If you don't know how HOIL works, whenever you use an ability, the other 2 abilities get faster cooldowns, as well as do more damage. You can stack that up to twice, so if you do melee and then barricade, your grenade will get 2 bonuses. And they're about double of the first stack, so it'll be double the damage bonus and double the recharge ability. The recharge rate right now is 400 and 800%. That should go up with 100 in a stat up to, I think, 600, 1200. So something to keep aware of. You do want to go for a more generalist setup on your abilities here, not going over 100 unless you really are keening into that melee damage with Consecration. And your mods are not super relevant. I'm not worried about the mods in most of these builds just because it's going to really depend on how good fonts are in the next expansion. So we're going to wait and see how those play out. But generally, you want a siphon on your helmet. You want to be able to make orbs with your melee or your grenade. And you want to either get some more ammo, get some more damage, get some more stats. That'll be generally what you're looking for in your armor pieces. For weaponry, taking Lord of Wolves, because Lord of Wolves will scorch on hipfire hits and on ADS kills. So you have a bit of incandescent in there. You have a bit of scorch on hit. So you can get some melee energy back for killing anything, basically, with Lord of Wolves to feed into your Ember of Searing once you have that equipped on here. I have a Midnight Coup on here because I just like kinetic primaries. If you want to take a Stasis primary in here, you can take that to work in the extra Frost armor from the artifact. Lord of Wolves will also be giving you Radiant on top of that, so you have that. You could also do double special here, depending on how good the double special economy is with the new ammo bars. That'll be a great pick. And then take your favorite Solar Heavy. I, once again, just have Heathens on here, but you can run literally anything and you'll probably be fine. This is very good for clearing ads. I think Consecration is going to be good at clearing ads and clearing majors. It's going to run into, I think, problems with champions now. And I think that's fine because something like Lord of Wolves and your heavy should be compensating for the champions and the bosses and things like that. Let's go ahead and look at our next solar build real quick. So our second solar build is just a Bonk Titan build. This is more designed for right now. I think going into the expansion, something like Worm Gods might give this a run for its money, or even some other exotics. Synthos is not going to get a damage buff on its melee damage bonus. So it's not going to get any worse. However, a lot of other things are going to get better. Like Worm Gods is going to go up to 400% instead of whatever it was now, 275, 300%, which is a sizable, increase. So it's going to be a much tighter competition between those two, as well as any other exotics that increase your damage. Like HOIL will still increase your melee damage, and that will be better. So you can kind of mess with that and change whatever melee exotic you want to have in here. However, I think melee is very important. Ideally, I think you're looking for the solar hand cannon. That is going to be a shotgun spread that will drop 1-2 punch to put in here, because that will give you an extra damage bonus that you don't normally have with Throwing Hammer now. Throwing Hammer currently does not benefit from 1-2 punch. It will later on in the expansion. However, I think Lord of Wolves is just too strong to give up for a regular shotgun with 1-2 punch. I'd rather just take Lord of Wolves. Once you get the hand cannon with that, however, you can kind of do that and then take a really good like special up here, like conditional or something like that, or a very good heavy weapon, like you can even just take Tractor, and that would probably be pretty fun. So look into that once you get there. You're also going to want to start pumping up your melee stat. The multiplier is going to be very big for melee builds, getting to that 200 for the 1.3x, because it is the only multiplicative source of damage. We're going to go for a fairly standard Bonk Titan build. I prefer Hammer of Soul. You could take Burning Maul if you would like. Then you can use Pyro Gales in a damage phase. I prefer having Hammer of Soul just for range damage, very consistent. I just think it feels cool to use. Obviously, you need Throwing Hammer for this build. Hitting a target will do damage, probably kill them usually, and it will give you Cure if you pick it up after it hits an enemy. Once again, I have Swarm Grenade on here. You can take Healing Grenade if you like, but I think there's so much healing in this build with Sunspots just built in that I prefer to just have a little bit of extra damage to throw out there. You could, of course, take any of these other grenades, like Fusion Grenades will probably be pretty decent in the next patch. Look how fast our cooldown is, right? I'm in 13. Is going to be very, very fast. Now, we are running Roaring Flames here, and Roaring Flames is getting buffed in the next patch. So it will no longer be scaled down with Synthoceps on or any of the other melee exotics, because it's going to be additive, right? So this is now going from I think it's like a 33% melee damage bonus with Synthoceps equipped, so that you'd be looking at somewhere around 3x damage. However, this is going to go up to 200 times melee damage when you have it equipped by itself, and once it's stacked up. However, it's going to be additive with Synthos now, which with that and 1-2 punch, you're going to be looking at like 6x, which is going to be almost double what Bonk is doing now. On top of that, you're going to have Sunspots still, with basically infinite ways to spawn Sunspots. So you're going to have very good healing, very, very good damage, even going higher if you're taking something like Worm Gods, right? Because you're going to have infinite cooldown anyways, you might as well. And in Dado's video where he was showing off the new Titan exotic, there was a point where he ran out of the buff on the exotic and hit a boss with it and went to go pick it up manually, and it looked like it instantly reset. It did not fill out the bar like it does now. So it looks like the Throwing Hammer nerf is kind of getting reverted, and no one's talked about it yet. So something to keep an eye on. We'll see if maybe that's just a 100 strength thing, or if that's just how the ability is going to work again. For your fragments on this class, I recommend Solace just to give you a greater starting duration on your torches and your restoration. Obviously, you're taking torches for Radiant. You could drop this if you are running Lord of Wolves or something, because you are going to be getting Radiant from headshot hits. However, I just prefer it to be redundant. Like, doesn't hurt to just have more ways to be Radiant if you're using your heavy or something like that. This is a great thing to just have in here. If you are going to change it out, there are a couple of options. Like you could take Mercy if you're making fire sprites. You could take Benevolence if you're going to be running Healing Grenade to give your teammates some healing. That will give you faster cooldowns, or you could take Singeing here, give you faster class ability. There's just a couple of options. I just think this is the most consistent. Ashes will give you more Scorch stacks, which when you have Sunspots going and you've got Swarm Grenades going and you're running Lord of Wolves, you'll get a lot more ignitions. And finally, Empyrean, extending your restoration. So if you're in Sunspot and you leave and you get kills with the Lord of Wolves, you'll keep getting more restoration just to make sure you keep staying alive. And that's kind of like the hallmark of Solar Titan, is just never dying. So both of these builds can do that very well. I think Bonk Titan is going to be having a bit of a resurgence in the next patch, so I highly recommend you getting to run this through the Legend campaign. Weapons are the same pretty much. Lord of Wolves is still on here. Again, take a Solar Hand Cannon once you get it. And then you can switch out for your preferred melee exotic. Mods are going to be much more focused on actually having heavy-handed. You're going to be doing a lot of melee kills very back-to-back. So 1 or 2 or 3 is probably preferred over just 1. However, if you are running surges and you do want to have the plus 40 for your melee stat, 10 is fine as long as you're running a time dilation for your surges. So let's go ahead and talk Strand Titan. Strand Titan is actually disgusting. It's probably even better than Solar. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this. There is a slight discrepancy. I'm going to show footage of me using this build with Syntheseps, but I think Wishful Ignorance is going to be the pick next patch. It is going to scale up to 200% bonus damage on your last hit instead of the 100% I think it is now. It's going to be about double the damage. And it is going to give you this Banner of War pulses, giving you 5% of your melee per teammate hit with it, including yourself. So it gives you more uptime on the melee more consistently. And it's about an equivalent damage boost. It's not very far behind Syntho's, but it is more consistent. So you don't need to be surrounded to have it active. It will just activate. So in certain situations where you're not sure you're going to be surrounded, Wishful Ignorance is just better. Syntheseps, still a great pick. Worm God's obviously a great pick if you are able to ramp up this damage bonus and then maintain it. I think you're going to need 2 or 3 stacks at a minimum to compete with Syntho's and with Wishful Ignorance. So that's just keep it in mind. Because you'll also get bonus gun damage, which is pretty sick on Worm Gods, honestly. Now, you are going to want to focus on that heavy-handed again here. Make sure you have a good orb generation with some surges and some fonts to get your melee stat up. You do want to go as high as you can, preferably up to that 200. Because this is going to be a Frenzied Blade build. Now, Frenzied Blade, you get 3 charges of this. Does decent damage, scales pretty well. Currently in the game, if you're using like a 1-2 punch shotgun, and you have Banner of War active, which increases your melee damage, you'll get like 200k per hit with Syntho's proc with Banner of War, because Banner of War is giving you a 1.15x multiplier while you have Syntho's activated. You're getting around 3 to 4x right now. If you incorporate the changes, the 1.3x, Banner of War will be giving a 100% melee damage bonus instead of the 1.15 while Syntho's is active. Obviously, it's going to be additive, and then Wishful Ignorance is going to get a buff. These are going to stack up even higher than they are now. With Tractor Cannon, you can also act as a team debuff. So you can debuff for your teammates, debuff for yourself. These 1-2 punch melees are literally enough to compete with like people doing heavy damage rotations. Especially if you are popping your super after you use your 3 melees. This will refund your 3 melees. Into the Fray is here to give you some Woven Mail when you break a tangle, and then whenever you have Woven Mail, this will increase your melee regen additionally. The more stacks you have with the Frenzied Blade, the faster it charges, by the way. So if you are only using one at a time, you will see a much higher uptime on your 3rd charge, and it will take much longer to recharge from 0 to 3. For our fragments, we have Generation here just to give us some extra grenade energy while dealing damage to bosses. This is a great way to get grapple back. If you do get the 1-2 punch hand cannon, I would suggest running that and then running Navigator. So you can do a little bit of both grapple melee spam as well as Frenzied Blade melee spam. Because a grapple grenade will hit a little bit harder than Frenzied Blade at full stacks with the same buffs because it counts as a melee. You just have to make sure you hit the 1-2 punch, then do the grapple melee. Now, Thread of Fury is in here for dealing tangled damage, giving you melee energy to help you skip a full charge if you hit enough enemies, which is great for your uptime. Warding is here because it will extend into the fray up to that 10 seconds again. It will not refresh to 5 seconds, it'll refresh up to 10, and if you just don't have Into the Fray active, this will just give you Woven Mail access. The Titan has very good uptime on Woven Mail, and that's the one that I recommend using Woven Mail with. Isolation's here just for general safety. If you're too far away, you aren't able to get in, you can't sever, just shoot them in the head, you'll sever them. That'll reduce their damage output by about 50%. It's like 45, I don't know right now, 40 to 50. So very, very strong. You can go for some other options if here. You want to go for Propagation for Unraveling rounds, it's not a bad pick. Want to work in some extra duration on your debuffs, go ahead. These are my preferred ones. And then you can take Swordbreaker here. I prefer that because I like to run a fusion in this slot. Usually I run a controlled burst fusion for boss damage specifically. If it's for boss damage, I'll have a controlled burst fusion with the shotgun, with Tractor, so that when I'm out of melees, I can dump the fusion. If you are going to have to do a lot of mechanics and you don't really need the fusion, just take a primary so you can do mechanics. It makes it a little bit easier to shoot things like panels. You could also take a Rocket Sidearm, will be a good pick there. This is generally a very, very strong build. Even if you're doing solo teams, you're not doing boss damage, Tractor, 1-2 punch shotgun with Banner of War and then Syntho's, Worm Gods, or Wishful Ignorance does a ridiculous amount of damage, and it's going to be even more next patch. So highly recommend making sure you get high strength rolls on your Wishful Ignorance, your Syntho's, and your Worm Gods. Now our second Strand Titan build is a Suspend build. This is a classic, oldie but a goodie. Take the Into the Fray to give you some Woven Mail, and then take Drengyr's Lash here to make your barricades shoot out suspending waves. We're taking Shackle Grenade as well to build into more Suspend on our uptime abilities. Obviously, we're going to have Generation to give us more grenade cooldown. But we are taking Threat of Mind so that killing suspended targets gives you Barricade back. So, you do your Barricade, you suspend some targets, you get some kills on those guys, you get your Barricade back. You do damage with your gun, you get your grenade back, suspend them, give your barricade back. It just feeds into itself. Very good rotation. We're taking continuity to increase the duration of suspend. Suspend is getting buffed next patch to be longer in general, but we should be seeing a pretty sizable bump in total uptime with both of these equipped. And then isolation's on here to give you some DR. You don't need threat of warding here as much because you're going to be decently far away. And with our exotic, we have Abeyant leaps on, which will give you woven mail when suspending a target, as well as giving you 3 waves on your Drengyer's Lash that will track more aggressively, and it'll go a little bit further. So this is a very, very strong loadout to suspend enemies, disable them, string them up, they can't shoot you. You're behind a barricade, you can still shoot them. I'm taking Barrow Dyad here because it's a very strong primary, very fun to use. Will shred even like mini bosses on its own, and especially in like Legend campaign, which is not too hard. I have Strand Surges on because I think it's just fun to build into. I'd recommend taking a Strand Heavy at that point. I had this on for the activity that we're in, but you can take whatever heavy for your activity. And then I have Aberrant Action in here just to have Heal Clip. I feel like Heal Clip on any class that you don't need a specific element in your weapon slot is a great pick. So as well with the artifact, this will give you Radiant on top of just giving you the healing. So you have bonus damage, you'll have bonus healing, you're going to be far away, you're going to be safe, you'll have Woven Mail. With your DR, you can sever with shots from Barrow Dyad, and you'll be very, 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 very like safe and lethal at the same time. I don't recommend any specific mods for this apart from being able to make orbs. You're not going to be really focusing on melee, you're not going to be getting grenade kills. So just whatever you can make orbs with consistently, and then a way to collect them. So you might want to switch out something like Special Finisher, and then Time Dilation would be your take here with your surges. And maybe you take a Powerful Attraction and just reduce your stats a little bit, just depending on what you're looking for. You do want high class ability with this build specifically, and then probably Grenade. So more fun, more niche, we're going to talk Stasis. Stasis builds are not going to get substantially better, I don't think, with the artifact. It's very big for solar, I think. Just getting that Radiance on hit is very strong. And then having Stasis give you Frost Armor is like okay. Like you can also get it with Rhyme Stealer on any frozen target without a kill, or crystals. However, for this, we are going to do a Diamond Lance Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap build. This is based around being a little bit further away, taking your time, sitting behind your rally barricade. While you're behind your rally barricade, getting headshots will give you a Diamond Lance. It'll spawn it right on top of you, as well as getting a headshot kill, which should also spawn it right on top of you. And then when you throw your Diamond Lance, it will spawn Stasis Crystals, which will do extra damage to whatever you hit when you shatter them. Hitting bosses and vehicles will give you up to 3 crystals, I believe. So that will be really good damage. If you see in the footage, it's actually pretty strong, even in Legend campaign. And then the rest of your stats, you want something like Fire Powers, and you want something that's good at like mid-long range, right? So I think Choir of One is the standout here. Like, yes, this is solar season. Solar is really good right now, but you could take Lord of Wolves if you're going to be a little bit closer, but I kind of prefer just Choir for being able to have Scout Rifle range with ridiculous damage. And then this does enough damage per hit that it's very, very threatening to red bars and majors, and you'll spawn that Diamond Lance and be able to shatter them very quickly. In the subclass itself, we are taking Dusk Fields just because I like having the uptime of that, just to give you some debuff, give you some easy freeze, and that'll help you spawn Diamond Lances in case you aren't getting hits with your Stasis weapon, or you're not getting your headshots with your barricade down. This will give you a very easy way to apply a Stasis debuff to proc Refraction, which will give you class ability back. We are taking Tectonic Harvest to spawn Stasis Crystals. This will just give you them from shattering crystals or enemies. I don't think it's terribly important, but there's not really much else that synergizes with sitting behind your barricade and being at mid-range. So at least you can make crystals and pick them up, and with Conduction, they'll come to you. I recommend taking Fissures here for a little extra damage. We are going for a lot of shatters, so it's pretty important. Just maximize that. And then Torment will give you some grenade energy on taking hit. You're not making any crystals that you need to shatter consistently. So you could take Shards for if you want to rely on your Diamond Lances. However, I think Torment is just more reliable in general. You don't need to do anything other than be alive for it to work. You're going to get hit, but that'll happen over time anyways. Rhyme will give you some extra overshield stacks for your Frost Armor. And then, like I said, Refraction is here to give you barricade back. And you're going to be getting a lot of slowed, frozen target kills. So this will just help you make sure you are always doing something. Rally Barricade is fast enough. If you have your class ability maxed out, you should pretty much have 100% uptime regardless. But this will help you make up for times where enemies destroy it, like in Legend content, which does happen. Now, for the more fun version of the Stasis build, the much more aggressive version, taking Icefall Mantles here. This will replace your barricade with a animation where your guy will do an AoE burst around him that will freeze all nearby enemies. This will be very similar to the Artifact mod, where you have Frost Armor and it breaks, and then it'll freeze enemies around you and reproc your Frost Armor. That's basically Icefall Mantle. So you can do that, which will give you full stacks of Frost Armor, and each stack of Frost Armor you gain, including refreshing your duration, picking up Stasis shards, etc., will give you healing on top of that. Now, you will be able to also get rapid kills with Stasis weapons, and that will give you Frost Armor, but realistically, you're looking to just use this to freeze enemies, and then with our artifacts in here, sorry, with our abilities in our subclass, with Tectonic Harvest, you'll be able to make more crystals, which will give you more stacks of that. Diamond Lance, if you slam it, will give you Frost Armor as well, which will heal you. I will take Cold Snap here to make sure you're freezing enemies. Freezing enemies is very powerful with your Tectonic Harvest, giving you more shards. Shiver Strike also will freeze after the explosive goes off. So with all of these, you can freeze with every ability. So you can be very, very aggressive and getting close. Because that will give you some breathing room in case you're in a dangerous situation. You just freeze everything, wait a couple seconds for some healing, then shatter them all for some more healing with your Tectonic Harvest, right? With the Hunger and one of our fragments, sorry, Whisper of Hunger, you will be able to get your melee back very, very quickly. This is all about cycling your abilities as fast as possible. So again, we have Torment on here to give you some extra grenade energy. There are no crystals on this loadout, so very important to take Torment there just to make sure you have some upkeep on your grenade. And then with Conduction, you will be very safe while picking up your Stasis shards. Refraction is here to once again give you that back for your Icefall Mantle. And then you're going to have more stacks up with Rhyme, which means you can get about half your bar in healing whenever you proc your Icefall Mantles. I have Shoot to Loot Attrition Orbs on my Parabellum here just because I am trying to spam abilities. So orbs are very useful. The extra damage from the orbs, you can use the Solar Stasis mix here, which will give you both shots bonus damage on Conditional Finality, as well as your Parabellum. Then take a Stasis Heavy or a Solar Heavy. You'll also take advantage of that with that 10%. This is a bit more flexible. With Parabellum equipped, you'll be able to pretty quickly proc Radiant with the artifact, and then be able to switch over to Conditional Finality and start dumping shots with that. Also, Conditional will freeze on one hit in case you need some extra healing or just the utility of freezing something for your class ability back. I think for this one, you're going to want to focus very, very broadly on class, grenade, and melee, as well as a little bit of weapons. So this is going to be a very, very hard one to specifically build into, because you're not building into one ability specifically. We're really building into freeze and shatter, which I don't think is going to scale with any specific stat above 100. So you can afford to be pretty flexible with this. So breaking into Prismatic, I think the standout one is still going to be Consecration Slam, right? This is the standard build. This is what I run all the time. I think, honestly, if you're going to switch one of these out, like I prefer taking Glacial Quake or Blade Fury, because it gives you all your melee charges back. Take T-Crash for damage, obviously. But if you are running something like Bolt Charge or Glacial Quake, you can probably drop Fast to Purpose, and then take these 4 when you lose the next slot for Consecration. I think the AoE, having some Sever, having some cooldown, having DR, is probably more consistent than taking Purpose with Bolt Charge or Frost Armor, and it drops off very often without Rhyme. So this will still be a very powerful build. We are taking a Stoicism with HOIL Synthos. It's not going to fall off. I mean, it is going to fall off from where it is. It's not going to fall off from the top of like the game. You are still going to clear out ads very, very easy. Clear out majors extremely strong. Lost signals here to make up some of that stasis darkness energy to help you transcend more often. But this is going to continue to be very good. I don't think you need to stop running this build. So for our second Prismatic Titan build, this one's more of a homebrew creation. Not like Consecration Slam pre-nerf, right? It's going to be worse than that, but it is pretty flexible and pretty safe. So this build is focused on Drengyr's Lash as well as Kephri's Horn. So with Kephri's Horn rework, and for the class item as well, this is true, you will get sunspots whenever you hit things with the solar waves in your barricade cast, right? So we take Drengyr's Lash to give you Suspend as well as that at the same time. I think the best role on the class item that you'd be looking for would be Abeyant Kephri's Horn, because that will give you 3 waves of each and it'll be more aggressive altogether. However, I have a HOIL Kephri's, so I kind of like that for this setup because you get more class ability energy. Either way, it should be fine. Even if you're just running regular Kephri's, like, you're probably going to be okay. You do have the option of also running Thruster because they both work with Thruster. They'll make little orbs that will do their thing. The Abeyant Leap, I think, is more important if you're running Drengyr's Lash with Thruster because it'll make the ball track to enemies, which makes it more consistent. But I prefer Barricade, just giving you that frontal direction. You know where it is. You can capitalize quickly on it. Now, I am taking Twilight Arsenal on here just to give me overshields because I think overshields are pretty good. Once again, we don't need Facet of Ruin here, but you are going to be having Glacier Grenade to freeze things. So you can keep that, you can drop it, whichever you prefer. This is great for Darkness Energy personally. However, you're going to be using the Kephri's Horn when you class your class ability to give you Sunspots, which will give you extra melee and grenade regen. So you want to be chucking these out as often as possible. You're using HOIL, so obviously you want to keep doing that. Knockouts in here to give you some extra healing, some extra melee damage. You could swap this out with something like Diamond Lance. So you have like double healing, right? You got melee healing, you got Kephri's giving you healing whenever you hit with your barricade waves. So it's pretty strong, and then obviously it's going to give you Amplified, which will give you back class ability because you have Hope equipped. Lord of Wolves, I think, is still the standout pick here. Just take it. It'll give you a bunch of damage. You're going to be close enough to shotgun them with Rally Barricade anyways. So you might as well use Lord of Wolves, get the Radiant on top. Midnight Coup's here for me to pick up ammo since this is a mid-range build, but you could take a Stasis weapon if you really want. Stasis Frost Armor. I don't really care. If you need Darkness Energy, take one of these. I probably Lost Signals more economical, very, very quick at building it up, and then tailor your heavy to what you're running. Stats-wise, you want high class ability. You are going to want decent grenade and melee as well. You're not focusing on either of those for damage, but you do want to have them up as often as possible to make sure your HOIL is at top efficiency. There you go. There is 8 Titan builds for the Edge of Fate Legendary campaign. Most of these should work with the artifact all the way up to max. I don't know how many of these you want to take in contest raid. I don't think this one will work in contest raid, as well as Consecration still will. I don't want you to think that Consecration is going to be bad, right? It is going to be a game breaker, but I think Strand and Solar Titan deserve a lot of attention coming up. I mean, Stasis Titan probably too. I'm a big Stasis Titan fan, and I always have been. So I think all of these mono builds are probably like really, really good. Prismatic Titan's a bit harder to make work without having very specific class item rules. Like you need Abeyant and Kephri to really work that Fire and Strand together. However, you can still make some very good builds just with regular exotics like Mask of the Quiet One, giving you Devour, great for grenade builds. So you can work on some of those and swap some of these out, like taking a Pulse Grenade with Mask of the Quiet One and some Void Weapons would be pretty great. But I really wanted to focus on trying to maximize the amount of Radiant you have with the artifact. So this is kind of just a nice mid-range, safe, high damage option. So this is what I went for, and I hope that you enjoy this build specifically. And all the others, I think you're going to go crazy with Titans. Like, I know you might feel sad that Consecration is getting nerfed, but Bonk Hammer getting like double the damage to even higher than that is ridiculous, right? We've all played Bonk before. So it'll be pretty fun. I think Titans are still going to be very good in the expansion, but don't worry about that. Tomorrow, the expansion launches. So we're going to have one more video come out, before the expansion goes live while they're doing the updates. We'll have something come out, and then we're going to be live tomorrow afternoon playing through the Legend campaign, and the rest of the week kind of getting ready for the contest raid this weekend. We are going to do a couple of videos, hopefully, over the week. I'm going to try and maintain the one video a day thing, but we're going to be doing a lot of streaming, so we'll see exactly how that pans out. We're going to try to get some stuff about contest raid builds. We're going to talk about the weapons once we see the roles in the API, which might take a day or two to get that sorted out and then be able to see those. So we'll find out what we need to grind, and hopefully the fastest way to get to max level will be just doing the Legendary campaign, and then you should be close enough to ready to do the raid. For any of you who are interested in that. For any of you who play Titan and you have any prismatic builds that are more interesting, any useful, unique combinations on the class item, I have the least amount of Titan class items because I got my HOIL Synthos like immediately, and I just never felt the need to really run duality on it again. So if you have anything interesting with class items that make some really good builds, let me know, and I'll go ahead and start looking into farming those now. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.